Oh, look who's here. Gary Legend, everybody. Well, first let me get to that before we, we give props to Gary Legend himself and all his legendary stuff. Ben, we didn't forget about you. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Jeff Long, and welcome back to another episode of Death, Taxes, and Sports Podcast, episode 149. I feel this intro is kind of like automatic at this point because I've said it about 149 darn times. But we're here with my two fellow Johnson Wells alum, Mr. Ben Holloway and Gary the Legend Johnson himself. Folks, how you doing? We have a lot to get to with sports, but how is everybody doing today?
Can't complain. It's another day in paradise. Love talking sports with the two of you, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, man. It's been quite the day. Ben, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, excited to talk sports like I always am. So
let's get to
ready
it.
to roll, baby.
Let's get to it, man. We got, obviously there's been the Luka trade, but I think the Lakers are kind of cooking up something a little bit. We'll definitely see with that. Gary, I want 3 words to describe that, so get ready, putting you on the spot soon. We got a little bit, what's going to be a bigger deal? LeBron wins a championship at age 40, or the Cavs? Are they Fugazi? Are they real, as I like to use Gary's words? We got a little bit of baseball. This Vlad Guerrero situation where the Blue Jays just keep on Blue Jaying, which makes absolutely no sense to me. A guy in his prime. And what's harder? This one's really fun. Being a two-way player in football with what Travis Hunter has done or what Shohei Ohtani has done. And then we got some Celtics and, we got Nations Cup and all that good stuff. So this Luka trade. So what did we expect? And we got here a little bit. So what did we expect from the Lakers 3 weeks ago, or when this trade did happen? Are we liking it? How are we feeling? Like, overall thoughts, guys?
Yeah, so I'll take the lead there. When they initially did the trade, obviously trading away Anthony Davis, getting Luka, of course you thought Luka and LeBron, 2 of the best passers in the history of the game and 2 of the highest IQs in the history of the game, they're going to score some points. But you got Jackson Hayes as your center, and then that's pretty much it. Don't even have really a backup center. They just have a bunch of bigs, bunch of wing players that kind of cover. And it's like, okay, you thought they're going to score 130 regularly, but they're probably going to give up 130 quite a bit as well. And I kind of thought, as far as expectations go, I thought their ceiling after the trade, I thought, making the second round would have been a good outcome. And now, I don't know. I think that my expectations have definitely changed. I think that I'm starting to believe they definitely have the chance to make the conference finals. I don't think that they would beat OKC in a 7-game series. I think it would be a really good matchup. But I think for me personally, their ceiling to me has gone up to the conference finals. And here's kind of why. I won't go too long, gentlemen, but they are, as you all know, I'm sure you've heard it on SportsCenter, First Take, whatever the thing goes. January 19th, they were 22-18. It was only 4 games above 500. Now they're 38-21. So that's 16-3 in the 19 games. And I looked it up. Anthony Davis, combined with injuries and obviously the trade, he only played in 5 of those 19 games. And in one of them, he left after like 10 minutes. So he basically played 4 out of those 19 games. My point is, there's quite a big sample size of no AD, specifically this year, and then mix in Luka the last 10 or 11 games. Like, they are the number 1 defense over those 19 games in the advanced statistics, defensive efficiency, those advanced metrics, not points per game, but just, defensive efficiency in those 19 games. They are number 1. I don't know. Like, you've done that without the all NBA defender of Anthony Davis for the majority of those 19 games. Starting to think they might be able to play some defense. 19 games is a little bit of a sample size. That's almost 25% of the season. 82 games, 20 divided by 80 is 25. So slightly under 25% of the season, they've been the number 1 defense.
I'm so proud of you in your math. I'm so proud of you.
So that's where I'm at with it. Gary, how do you feel? How did you feel like 3 weeks ago? Expectations, and how about now?
I was so confused 3 weeks ago regarding the trade. Just it did like on the surface, you go, well, why would why would Dallas give up basically the face of their franchise, the face of Dallas itself for for pennies on the dollar? Like why would they do that? Are we getting a horse that's already been, a run out horse, so somebody's overtired and are we getting the fat, lazy, out of shape Luka? Like did we get fleeced? And if there's anything the last 3 weeks has taught me is the fact that Dallas got fleeced something serious in this trade. Like your first game that you have with Anthony Davis on the floor, he doesn't finish. Hasn't been back since. And there's a growing belief that one game that we saw with Anthony Davis as a Maverick might be the only game that we see Anthony Davis as a Maverick this season. You look at the litany of injuries that Dallas has suffered in the time between, and of course now with Kyrie Irving tearing his ACL and being done for the season, it's kind of the death knell for them. I didn't think, I looked at them and I looked at Phoenix and I went, okay, one of those two teams is going to be in the play-in. And if you had told me that even after the trade 3 weeks ago that Dallas would be on their way out and Phoenix could possibly be on their way in, I would have laughed at you. But folks, we're at that point where Dallas is going to fall off, and they have to. Those injuries have started to add up and add up and add up, and this team, which was already not as good as we came to find out in the time between, since the trade, it's a wrap for them. The Lakers came out as like the ultimate winners in this trade if everything continues to play as it has been. If they continue, call me a Laker fan all you want. I'm not saying they can win the championship, but that West is no sure thing. Hell, the East is no sure thing either, but the West is definitely no sure thing. Yes, Oklahoma City has the best record and everything, and you still got to contend with Denver. You still have to contend, with Houston. Houston's on the rise and everything like that. The Warriors are now starting to make a little more noise and work their way up the standings. So there are teams that, can go on a run and find themselves in the finals. The Lakers are very much at the top of that list if everything continues to go their way. They have to now learn to manage LeBron, because what'll suck is you run him out there night in and night out. He may sit out a game, in a back-to-back, whatever the case is. You run him out there and then come playoff time, he's no good. And unfortunately, we've reached the point in LeBron's career where, yes, he's going to have those great games, but at the same time, he's 40. Like, you know what I mean? Like, at some point, Father Time is gonna win out. And I'm not saying he's going to sit here and fall off the cliff. I don't think that's going to be the case. But what we expect from LeBron come playoff time and what the output is might be a little bit different now. So they got to be really, really careful if they want to get this, let this run out and be this strong team.
I see like anything else that happens for the rest of the season, Gary, for our Lakers, I consider this to be like we're playing with house money at this whole entire point, right? Like for me, like they were 22-18, like Ben so eloquently stated. And so I said, them just making in the top 6 and making the playoffs, I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm good with that, right? But now you got Luka, and you're seeing how he's starting to ingratiate himself with the team. And so for me, I'm like, hey, man, we're playing with house money. So I'm just like, look, the pressure's off for me. So I'm just going to sit back and as a fan be able to watch, because I don't have those type of expectations, because I think the lack of size could eventually hurt them. But I also think that there's enough of a sample size as to how great Luka Doncic is and what he's been able to do as far as being able to carry underwhelming teams into deep playoff runs. And I think we both can agree that this team is far more talented than the Luka team that beat the Suns 3 years ago.
I was going to say, Jeff, you were at that game 7.
right?
in Phoenix when they were up by
so
like 30 at
right,
halftime.
exactly. I saw that. Like, I saw the team that Mavericks, like, that was on that roster, and it was very underwhelming. So you take a 40-year-old LeBron James who might take a night off. Rudy Hachimura is not terrible. Austin Reeves is starting to ascend into a player that we never had even thought, right? Defensively,
Solid third option.
right? Like, the defense is, what it is. But Doris Finney-Smith, Gabe Vincent is starting to do a little bit on the fast break. There's enough complementary pieces to where that if they're able to make their open jump shots and they could play just, above average defense, there's a possibility. With OKC, I still think there's holes because, Ben, as you and I had discussed on the phone, I think outside of SGA, who's going to be that scorer that's going to be able to generate offense when they're not able to develop screens, right? They are a screen-driven, fast break, high turnover type of team. That's how they generate points, right? So if they're able to slow that game down, right, like there's enough holes on all these rosters in the West for the Lakers with the right matchup to be able to sneak in. I'm just saying, right? But what I would say is that I think that Luka is just that great of a player to where, like, I would not be surprised if they made it to the NBA Finals because even LeBron James at 40 is still top 5 player in the league. Yeah. I don't care what anyone else says. He's still top 5 player.
There's literally no debate. If you say that LeBron's not top 5 right now, I don't think you watch basketball.
I mean,
and if you do, you're not watching it correctly. I mean, they posted the stats. I know you've all seen the screenshot. His MVP season in, I think, 2012, 2013, and the stats since turning 40. The stats since turning 40 are higher than that.
Exactly. Like, you had another thought on
this though on their playoff possibilities though. The couple things they have working for them. Obviously, we've addressed some of them, but they got 4 guys who on any night can get 20. I mean, you got Hachimura, obviously LeBron, Luka, and Austin Reeves. Any night, all of them can get 20, even 25 points. So that works in your favor. Then as far as the matchup possibly with Oklahoma City, in my mind, gentlemen, I'm sure you know, back when Derrick Rose, I believe, was the youngest MVP, they were the number 1 seed. They'd beaten Miami like 3 out of 4 times the regular season, smoked Miami in game 1 of the conference finals. After that, every fourth quarter, LeBron guarded Derrick Rose. And then they won 4 games in a row, a large part to that. I don't think LeBron at age 40 can guard SGA in the fourth quarters, but I think they can employ a similar strategy and rotate essentially between Hachimura and Vanderbilt, kind of have those two kind of shadow SGA and make everybody else beat you. Yeah. I think those 2 defenders are good enough to at least contain him and make SGA work really, really hard. And then it's like, okay, what else you got? We know you got some really good players, but you got enough to win series without SGA being excellent?
Like OKC, like Chet Holmgren and what's his other face? Hortenstein, they're both injury prone. And it's really hard to trust. Like, in order for them to play well, they need both those guys because they're responsible for the screens. So you take those guys away, there's no guarantee that Chet Holmgren's going to be able to hold up. But this is not the OKC happy hour. Let's move on, shall we? Let's move
Absolutely.
on.
Let's make it roll.
I really want
to why don't you lead off that next topic?
This one is really interesting. So we got what is going to be a bigger deal, right? LeBron James winning a championship at 40, his 5th championship with the Cavs, winning the first title since he left. Honestly, I think this one is a tough one. I don't think this one is as easy as like you think because I think you can make different arguments. But I'm going to say for LeBron to win a 5th championship at the age 40, just due to the litany of variables that we had previously discussed, starting at 22 and 18, losing Anthony Davis, not having a center. I feel the West is a little bit more of a gauntlet. And you tell me the last time there was a player at age 40 be a contributing factor on a championship team.
Brady. That's it.
An NBA.
Literally that. Yeah, no, I'm saying I'm making the point for you. That's the entire list, all 4 sports.
At that point, 2 titles with 2 different teams, a 5th title. I mean, he doesn't necessarily need to win another one, but I definitely think 5 kind of puts you even of a higher category, because at that point you're talking, you're talking Kobe, right? And you're talking one ring away from MJ. So I mean, I would have to go with that. But the Cavs, what they're doing has just been absolutely phenomenal. But I still think that record is a little bit fugazi, as Gary likes to use.
Gary, go ahead. Go next.
And no, it is. I was going to say it is fugazi because, like they're doing like what the Knicks are doing. The Oklahoma City, I'm speaking of, are doing what the Knicks are doing out, in the East. They're beating up on the bad teams, and they've got a few good teams, but there's nothing that makes me go, oh yeah, they're the world beaters this year or anything like that. To answer the question, does anybody know the last time the Cavaliers won a playoff series without LeBron James on their roster?
2000. I'm thinking.
I'm going back in the
90s.
80s is my guess.
Ben, you're closer. 1993 was the last time that they won a playoff series without having LeBron James on their roster. Between 1993 and then last season when they won in the first round against against Orlando. So for me, if they can do all of their long-term success as a franchise is directly tied to LeBron James. There wasn't a lot of success before then. They had a decent little run in the 90s, but they ran into that Michael Jordan guy and kept running into him over and over and over again. So, for me, to see them, if they do win a championship, if they're able to do it without LeBron James, I'm not saying it's miraculous because they have a great roster of players, but it would speak volumes to that argument or to what what the naysayers say, like, oh, they'll never win one without LeBron. LeBron is the key to their franchise's success, especially in the last few years. So I think, yes, it would be nice for LeBron to win a 5th championship, but there's a bunch of players with 5 championships. It would be nice for him to win a championship past 40, but like you said, Brady's done it. I think even though I personally feel like LeBron is the exception to the rule and not the new norm, you'll see a few more players if they can keep their bodies up and stay healthy enough. Listen, Steph Curry, don't think 3-4 years from now he won't be able to still play. That jump shot's forever. He can find himself on a team and win a champion.
The one talent that doesn't go away is shooting. He
can be that Ray Allen expert marksman that you signed during the offseason to help push your team over the top. So I'm not looking at the 40-somethings, and again, I'm not looking at the 5 championships because, again, there's a list of 5-time champions in the league. There is a list of them at this point. If the Cavs can win a championship and not have LeBron James on the roster, that speaks volumes, period.
Hey. So I went the other way, Gary, because I wanted us to disagree on something for a change.
Fair enough.
Ben?
So Gary makes really, really compelling cases. Hold on just a second.
Okay. So, what LeBron James is doing at 40 is just absolutely ridiculous.
It is.
You know what I mean? And it's like, how many more years do you honestly think LeBron James has?
He has as many years as he damn well pleases at this point. I'm no longer beholden to, he's got 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Like, I know he's not going to play for forever, nor should he try. But I think he has enough within him to be able to just walk away whenever he so feels it. I personally say he gives us at least one more season, and then we go from there.
I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, say if they win the championship this year, I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. But let's get into this next one. NCAA men's basketball. So what do we think? I know how much you're more it's more college football. You're not a college football guy, right?
Yep.
Basketball.
Exactly.
So what are we thinking here, man? What is most likely to win a championship, Duke or an SEC team or anyone else? What are you feeling?
I think that the college basketball gods would love to see Duke win a championship. we talk about, we just said in the conversation, winning a championship for Cleveland without LeBron would be huge. Try winning an NCAA championship without Coach K. Do you want to talk about icon status if you can achieve that? Cooper Flag would be considered, well, he'd be an icon. I'm not saying he'd be up there with Coach K, but I can't say that he wouldn't be either. John Shire would get far more looks nationwide if he can lead a Duke team to a championship. Like
He's not leaving.
No, he's not leaving, but I'm saying like he will. You know how we sat here the last few years and built up Dan Hurley in Connecticut, and now look at them. Like I could see him being in that Dan Hurley camp of like, we look at him as one of the top coaches in the country and all that. So I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm saying I got to give John Shire. I got to give John Shire props for like an amazing job that he's done. That's really funny. I can't stop laughing at that one. Like what John Shire has been able to do with Duke has just been absolutely phenomenal, right? And you look at the fact that that Cooper Flag literally just turned 18 in December. Like I don't think people realize like how young this kid is. Like he should be a senior in high school right now, but he reclassed, I believe, to come to Duke a year early and is just doing absolutely phenomenal things. I don't know how his game is going to translate into the NBA because we've seen enough instances of where there's been highly touted prospects. And when you're 18, 19 years old and you're going up against grown men, that type of, that's a whole nother level of expectation, a whole nother level of just, I don't even know, a kerfluffle that we didn't even think of. But to the question, I want to say Duke can do it. But when I saw them play Clemson and they lost, I see that the only way that Duke goes is when Cooper Flag goes, right? And it's almost like it's. I've watched maybe 2 games this year of Duke, and I just feel that if he goes up against some of these more senior-laden teams into the tournament, that experience is going to become a huge factor. And I'm just concerned that their reliance on too many freshmen could be to their detriment. And so as much as I want to say I think they're going to win, I like Auburn to do it just because that is a team that has a lot of experience, has a lot of 4th, 5th-year seniors. And I just think ultimately when you're talking about 22, 23-year-old grown men going up against 18, 19-year-olds, I think that ultimately makes a difference. And I really like them. But I also like Florida too, man. Like SEC, like we're actually talking about SEC basketball actually being a thing.
It's on the rise. For the names you mentioned, Auburn, really it's kind of a once in 40 years type deal. The last time that they were they were this level of relevant. But you said Florida has had their ebbs and flows as being a relevant basketball program and being a relevant football program, and it looks like right now they're back to being a relevant basketball program. So you're right. Shout out to the SEC. Like I don't know, they just grow athletes there, I guess.
I mean, like you had Auburn and Alabama number 1 and number 2. Like if you didn't know it, you would have thought it was football. Yeah, you would have thought it was football.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the SEC is starting to come. I mean, just then Kentucky's kind of having a little bit of a slide. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm actually more excited for the women's game than I am than the men's game this year. There's like literally. Go ahead.
I'm not saying the NCAA has done a really good job shining the light on women's sports, especially women's college basketball.
Yeah. And I mean, like UCLA, USC, Ohio State, North Carolina State, UConn, LSU, Notre Dame. Those are just the 7. Tennessee was number 11 in the country, but then got upset by like 11 and 16 Georgia. So it's like, for me, I know there's another team that I'm forgetting, but like there's literally 10 to 13 teams that really have a chance to win. So I'm going to be glued to the conference championship games. I'm super excited about it. I think there's going to be a lot of good basketball. Let's get to some of these baseball topics, man. I really want to get to this Vlad contract situation because I am like, what are the Toronto Blue Jays doing by fumbling a guy that wants to be there? And I looked at his numbers. I didn't realize he had a 300 plus batting average, 30 plus home runs, OPS above 800. I mean, this is a guy that could be the corner staple of your franchise for the next 10 to 15 years, right? We're not talking about Juan Soto money, but we're definitely talking about 13, 14 years, probably about 550 million, maybe 600 if you can get lucky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you laid the groundwork for this at the very beginning with the Blue Jays Blue Jaying. Like, this is kind of what they do. Like, you have a generational talent that was the son of a generational talent that is a Canadian legend, and you can't do anything to satisfy him. You can't bring him, bring yourselves close enough to a deal. And like, who are you saving the money for? That's going to come to Toronto and be the savior. Right now, you have the opportunity to have one of the faces of baseball be just that and be that for your team, the only team north of the border. Like, it's a missed opportunity on Toronto's part if they let him go for next to nothing. And if they let him go, it's we know the destinations. We know what he had, places that he has in mind or places that he would consider. I think we also know that Steve Cohen will not be outbid for a single soul on this planet. So who knows?
Which is absolutely crazy that Juan Soto is going. It went to the Mets. But I'm honestly, like, as a fan, I'm actually more than okay that we did not pay him that contract. Like honestly, like, how are you feeling about that? Like,
I think we addressed a number of glaring issues that we had prior to Juan Soto, during Juan Soto, and post Juan Soto. So I'm not. Would it be nice to have him on the roster? Absolutely. Why wouldn't you want that on your roster? But if you can then take the money, it's like they took the money that they would have paid for one player and paid like six. That's good business. I don't care who you are. And I know it's the Yankees, and everybody has the George Steinbrenner way of we got to spend the most money, and we should not be outbid. It's like no, we need to be smart about this. You outside the Dodgers last year, the last couple of world champions have not had a super crazy payroll. So I think this is the era of yes, you can give him the money. You don't have to, and as long as you say it's healthy, a team will do it. But
even with the Dodgers situation, like, the Dodgers limped into the World Series. Like, it wasn't like it was like this overwhelming, like, dominating type of postseason run, right? Like, they had to get lucky to be able to make it, right? And so even though they have the most expensive payroll, they still have, right, like Tyler Glass now, who's probably only going to give you 120 innings. Ohtani, he's coming back from an elbow injury. You still got Clayton Kershaw. I'm saying Clayton Kershaw. So it's like, yes, they have the payroll and they have the money, but there's still no guarantee. And baseball is one of those type of finicky sports where I feel that you got to have a decent lineup. You got to have run prevention with good pitching and a good bullpen. So I think that signing Max Fried, signing Devin Williams, I think is going to help us in the run prevention game to where we'll be able to generate just enough offense with Judge and LeMahieu and all those guys to where I still think we can win about 92 to 95 games. And that's good enough to still win the division, because I think the Orioles are going to take a step back because they didn't really upgrade their pitching, right? And obviously the Blue Jays are going to Blue Jay. They're completely irrelevant. I think the Red Sox are definitely a very interesting team, because Alex Bregman went there. But I'm just not sure that's enough to where, we can crown them and say, okay, they're gonna dethrone us in the AL East. But we'll see.
I'll say this about Boston. Every time that you think they're going to be this 90 to 95 to 100 win team that's going to run roughshod of the AL East, they win 65 games. Like that, if you've noticed in their history, like the seasons in which they should be better, they aren't. the seasons where they come in with not the loftiest of expectations, they end up with like their league's best record, their franchise's best record. So I don't know. They will be better because they're for Bregman or whatever. But I don't. I think that the Yankees have enough to repeat as AL East champions, and then we'll see what happens come postseason time.
Yeah. Like honestly, like I don't know, man. The Rays. They got that guy Junior Caminero, and I'm like, the Rays. They're just like one of those sneaky teams where it's like they're like a virus that remains dormant in the body, and it's like it's there, but they'll just pop out and have symptoms, and the body will have symptoms when you least expect it, right?
Right.
So it's like even with a little payroll. So I'm not. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see, man. But the Guerrero, they got the Blue Jays. You owe it to your fan base to at least try to keep some of your players, or if not, you're gonna have to trade him because he's gonna walk at free agency. You don't want to pull like the Angels should have traded Ohtani and could have gotten a haul for him, but instead
they would have gotten the farm for him. And no, you're right. They let him go, and the A's are the Angels are who they are.
Absolutely trash, but hey, it's what it is. This little bit, I want to do a little bit of a pivot here, and then we'll get back to baseball because I had something on Dallas, and I had this note here. I want to throw this question to you, and it might sound absurd, but do you feel with what Dallas is doing, they are trying to intentionally destroy this franchise to force their move to Las Vegas?
See, for years or last few years, I always thought it was going to be Sacramento. Like they seem like, even though that fan base is the most ravenous and rabid fan base of the teams that I know, I still always thought like they would be the team to make that move. But the more questionable business practices that the Dallas Mavericks have been doing over the last few months, the more that I'm like, y'all are trying to move. Which I'm like, of the three teams in Texas, and this is no disrespect to Houston, no disrespect to San Antonio, like Dallas is Dallas. Just by name, Dallas is different. Like, you know what I mean? And they have a storied franchise history there too. So you would think that they would be better, and they wouldn't sit here and possibly tank an intent to sell, to move the team, but there's not a lot of options or not a lot of answers that make a whole lot of sense. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I'm going to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying I just think it wouldn't surprise me if they move one day. I'm just hoping that this is just a string of really shit luck for them.
I mean, you trade away Luka. I mean, my thing is, it's like you're worrying about whether you're going to pay a guy $345 million, but like you have him, you're going to recoup. And it's not like you pay all that money up front, right?
Right.
Like you didn't have to pay him the full 345. You could have deferred money. Like, I mean, hell, look at what the Dodgers did by deferring like millions of dollars in Ohtani's contract.
Well, we will all be old and dead by the time Shohei Ohtani gets finished paying the money that he's paid. His kids will actually pick up the money on that contract.
Yeah, 10 years, $700 million. Like, it's just still crazy just thinking about that. Like 10 years, $700 million. So I don't know. Like them talking about increasing the prices by 9%, trading Luka Doncic for crumbs on the dollar. It just really makes no sense. Really makes no sense.
It doesn't.
Yeah. But let's finish this up here because we don't want to make this too much of a long episode, and we both got things that we got to do here. But let's get to this final one here. Which one do you think is harder, Shohei Ohtani pitching and hitting, or Travis Hunter playing quarterback and wide receiver? Let's finish with that.
I think just it's a solid question, but the answer is almost a little obvious. It has to be Travis Hunter playing cornerback and wide receiver. I think, if you think about it, football is a far more physical, harder sport. So you're going to either get hit by the offense or get hit by the defense. That's your inevitable pain. Shohei Ohtani, yes, coming back from his injury and coming back to be able to pitch and hit is something to behold. And it is, it's not like pitchers are able to do that every day, or hitters are able to pitch every day. Like, I get that, but just the physical demand of professional football, just by itself, makes it makes the idea of playing defense and then turning around playing offense a lot harder. Now he could go, of course, he has perhaps the best example of a player that can play offense and defense, as his former head coach. We've seen the plays many a times in which Dion has lined up for an offensive play and has scored a touchdown for whether it be a pass or run, whatever the case is during back in the day. So he does have a solid reference to go to as far as like somebody that can help him with that. But at the end of the day, his body's going to force him to make a decision one way or the other. Ohtani, he doesn't have to pitch every day. He pitches once every 5 days. He can do that. Like, his body will last a little bit longer.
Yeah, I'll give props to what Otani's been able to do, because I think that he has been able to be a little bit more dominant on both sides versus Travis Hunter. But I have to go with what Travis Hunter has been able to do, because he's just been so good at both. I wonder how his game translates into the NFL, because I'm just not sure. I don't see a guy that has like the most like bursting like breakaway speed. So it's like, if he's a receiver, how's that going to play? And I don't know if his body's going to be able to keep up on both sides. But I'm going to probably have to go with Travis Hunter, but not by much on this one. Not by much. So we'll have to see. I feel like there was a rant that there was a little bit of a gripe that I had, and there was like one that I really felt was really, really, really irking my soul earlier today that I wanted to say, but now I felt like I forgot it. So do you have any gripes there?
No, I think, I'm just going to point out one more stat, and I don't really have a gripe, but it's a stat to point out. So in his 22nd NBA season, LeBron James is averaging 24.8 points, 8 rebounds, and 8.6 assists per game. For reference, that 24.8 points per game, he is 12th in the league. I'm going to just quickly run off the names of the players that are ahead of him, because once you see, it's like, these are all players that are almost, I'd say, a good 10 to 15 years younger than him at this point. I'm sorry, I'm going to it real quick. So here are the players ahead of him in scoring. You got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's the league's leading scorer and likely MVP. Giannis, Jokic, Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, Tyrese Maxey, Jalen Brunson, Devin Booker, Damian Lillard, Cade Cunningham. Of the names that I listed, the only person that's relatively old like that with him is Kevin Durant. Like, I don't care who you are. This is not, like I said before, LeBron is more the exception to the rule than the new norm. And I think we really won't fully appreciate what he's done and what he's currently doing until the day he's inducted into the Hall of Fame. And even then, I'm like, I don't think we'll really truly grasp how much he's been able to do. And mind you, like, I'm a knock on wood now, but he's played 55 games. Like, he's going to, if he stays healthy enough and plays 10 more games, he's going to qualify for the end of season awards. He's going to make an All NBA team. Because if you make an All NBA team off the 15 players in the top 15 scorers, he's going to make the team. Like, it's impressive, but like I said, we're not going to see this again. I don't care who you are. Like, we're not going to see the likes of this type of scoring this late into somebody's life ever again.
No, I have to agree with you, man. I mean, it's definitely been very, very, very impressed with what he's been able to do. I just think that eventually he's going to have to hang it up, but I don't like. I think it's going to be a very long time before we have truly, truly, truly great players, right? And I watched that documentary, Chasing Gold, and there was one moment where it said from LeBron to Steph to Durant, When are we going to hear something like that ever again?
I mean, we're not. Like,
Right?
I think the NBA is in an interesting spot where they have to really like figure out which one of these young players is going to be the face of the league going forward, because it could be Giannis, you know, it should be Anthony Edwards, and it could be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but I think, you know, that only goes as far as how far he takes Oklahoma City.
Yeah. Well, we'll see, sir. We'll see. Looks like Mr. Ben Holloway had a little bit of an issue here. So we're going to cut our episode short and get back to our regular lives. But, sir, my friend, it's definitely been a pleasure chopping it up with you with sports. Next week, we'd have our 150th episode. Crazy that we are still going strong. But, you know, to all of our listeners and everybody else, we appreciate you. Be out for all the news and everything else on our social media channels. But until next time, peace and love, everybody.